Hi everyone, welcome to another Broken Meeple video, and we're talking about my top 10 of 2020 again. Yeah, the thing is that when I get to the end of a year, because of the way board games come out, you end up with this like 7-month period where pretty much nothing comes out. It's just simply, the odd game here and there and Kickstarter arrivals usually. So then you get to August when Gen Con happens in America, and suddenly a bunch of games comes out, but then you have another little bit of a lull, and then Essen arrives, and then suddenly everything comes out. It gets ridiculous. So by the time we get to November and December, I'm just overwhelmed with games. Even the Dice Tower can't keep up with all the games out there. Do you honestly think I'm going to be able to, little old me? So what tends to happen is that I do an end of the year list when it gets to that point, but then I have to play some of the games I've missed out on in the first half of the next year, and then I basically go back and do a retrospective. I've done one for 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and now 20. So I've done one for every year, and you can, by all means, go back and check out those videos because they're quite good to do, actually. I like to look back on a year a second time so that I can think, well, hang on, those games I liked then, do I still like them a good 6-7 months later? So essentially what I'm doing is I haven't looked at the previous list. I've just basically got a bunch of games that I believe to be from 2020, assessed what I think of them now, not what I thought of them before, what I think of them now, and then do the list again. So there'll be some movers, there'll be some shakers, there might be some new entries, and there'll be some that fell off, because frankly, 2020 wasn't my favourite of all the board game years, it has to be said, but I'm pretty confident I've got a lot that I can get really hyped about this time. So without further ado, let's get cracking.
Get on with it.
Now normally you'd hope, oh yes, can you get it to us to show? Big box here, people. Yeah, I can't get everything for show and tell. This is Dwellings of Eldervale. Dwellings of Eldervale from Breaking Games is, I think it was higher on my list last time, but this is still a really good, fun, hybrid game. It combines Euro mechanics of worker placement and trying to get points by controlling areas on a tile board, but then it also combines it with a little bit of Ameritrash thrown in with dice combat and magic spells and a pretty interesting theme overall, particularly when you throw in the gimmick of having those big giant monsters running around, which is like pretty cool.
Lord help me! What? You're needed on the bridge, sir. Knock on my door! Knock next time!
It's huge, it's a lot of money, trust me. It wasn't the cheapest Kickstarter in the world, but it's well produced, it's got tons of different factions that you can use for a different style of play. Granted, the die combat can slightly irk me a little bit, which is why it's my number 10. You can get screwed over by the combat, and I do wish there was a little bit more variety in certain aspects. Well, I mean, there's a fair amount of variety in the game, but I'm talking about the cards specifically. There are some cards that you just don't really go after, and the different magic schools don't feel terribly different from each other, but those are small gripes. The game is still a really good fun. I've got friends who love it to bits. It's great to have the sound bases, with the monsters running around so you can do noises. It is a solid game overall. It's just, rather big and struggles to get off the shelf, although the solo mode in this is particularly good. The Ghosts of Eldervale, I think it's called. Definitely one to pick up if you're a solo player, but if you think you're going to play this with a decent group, then by all means pick it up as well. My number 10, Dwellings of Eldervale. And for my number 9, we're travelling to Egypt. Well, in setting anyway, not really in theme. We're talking Tekhenu from David Turksey and Daniel Tassini. This from Board and Dice is probably my second favourite of all the tea games. Teotihuacan is still my favourite, it's on the shelf still there. Taiwan Tinsuyu didn't really win me over as much as it should have done, and I'm interested to try out pretty much all the other games that come out, whether or not they begin with TZ or whatever weird gimmick they try to do now. But Tekhenu is still a really solid one. Yes, the theme is neither here or there, really. I mean, it's very much a mechanical Euro, but the dice mechanic with the obelisk, where you're selecting the dice and the obelisk is differentiating what dice are available based on whether they're light and dark or neutral, I forget what the terms are, but essentially as the obelisk spins round, different dice become available, some go out, some become more powerful, and with the 6 different actions that you can do, you have to try and plan ahead, thinking, well, if I do this action now, that's going to spin round, which means that die will hopefully be available. Other people can still nick your dice, so maybe I'll go grab cards now, then build my farm then, go grab a statue at that point. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach the game, but I think it's just, I mean, if it was just that, oh, I've got 6 actions and then I do it, I'd probably get bored rather quickly. In fact, it almost feels a bit like Trajan, and you know how much I hate Trajan. The whole it's a bunch of mini-games strapped together.
Oh, yes! I hate this! It is revolting!
Here, it's kind of like that, but they link together a bit better than Trajan. But that tactical element with the obelisk is still really good fun to have to manipulate as the game goes on, and there is still a good amount of variety in terms of the actions you can do and what path to victory you can take. Even if I will say you're kind of forced to get some of those decree cards from the card row, because if you don't, you're going to fall behind on points, I believe. But no, this one is still solid. I've pimped it out with a folded space insert. Really cool. Good TTS mod for it as well, if you don't mind spending about 3 hours playing the game, but that's the way it is with online gaming. Tekenu is my number 9. For my number 8, we're looking at one of the best solo games to have come out for last year because it's purely a solo game, and that's Under Falling Skies from Czech Game Editions. This is basically Space Invaders the dice game.
What are your orders?
Increase speed, drop down, and reverse direction.
You are fighting off aliens that are hovering down in a big mothership and sending fighters while you build up your base full of electric power generators, guns, turrets, and robot rooms and... robot rooms? Robot construction yards, I don't know, whatever you want to call them. But it's a tactical game where you roll dice and manipulate those dice in order to do the various actions, but you have to place one on each column and you can't have 2 on a row. So there's not only a tactical element to it, but there's also restrictions on what you can do. So you've got to be really good at planning what you're going to do with those dice, and it's just a really good fun thematic tense affair, and that's for a dice game, which is kind of hard to do. You get a lot of replay value in this box with a kind of mini campaign and several different scenarios, but it's just really cool. I was blown away by how well this turned out. Yeah, because I kind of thought, a pure solo dice game, am I really going to get into this one much? And yeah, it just really blew me away. It's really good fun, definitely a challenge. I mean, you can put it on whatever difficulty setting you like, and trust me, if you go much higher in the difficulty ratings, you're going to lose this a lot. But even if you want to play it with 2 of you and work together on it, I've done that on a live stream with Paul Grogan before, and it's a solid way to do it. But nah, even just plain solo, could have been in a smaller box maybe, but there's a lot of stuff in here, so you got to admit, it's just really cool. Czech Game Editions really did a number on 2020, it must be said. Spoiler alert maybe. But yeah, Under Falling Skies is a solid 8. Basically, I don't know if this game is technically a 2019 game.
What?
When I found it to be available in the UK, I think it was 2020, and when I asked people, is this a 2019 game? They said, well, most people didn't get it until early 2020, like January, February, even though it was kickstarted and maybe got a few prototypes and a few reviews out in 2019, and frankly, Board Game Geek is hardly to be trusted half the time anyway, so I figured, after all that, I'm going to class this as one of 2020, so if you don't like it, tough. That's pretty much all I can say. It's my list, I do what I want.
Everybody got that?
And I'm talking about a new addition to the collection, In the Hall of the Mountain King.
There'll be plenty of time to discuss your objections when and if you return.
As I say, it says 2019, but I still think this feels more like a 2020 game just from when I remember seeing it available. But whatever, I'm going to talk about it now. This is a new addition to the collection, and it's really starting to sing for me. It's a polyomino game combined with resource management where you are trolls trying to build tunnels through this active volcano. You're trying to find different resources through the cave, but while also gaining points for finding statues and sticking them on pedestals or great halls. Of course, you're trying to stay out of each other's way, and it's made even better with this really cool resource production system where you build this little pyramid of trolls in front of you, and as you place another troll, you recruit them for a cost, but when you place the troll on top, you get its resources and also the ones on the trolls below it. So you start off with 4 starter trolls, and then you put one on top of 2, and then you get all 3 trolls, and then you put one on top of 3 more, and then you put ones on the next level up, and you get all 5 of them. And, you know, am I doing the maths? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. You know what I mean. It's a cascading pyramid effect. So you have to be careful with managing your resources and spending them off the trolls as quick as possible, because if they've got spots filled, they won't generate any more resources. But even with that said, I enjoy the polyomino aspect of this, just building your tunnels through this volcano, trying to think, well, I've got to get around that rubble, I don't have the things for that. Oh, if I cover that space though, I get some more resources, that'd be really cool. You can approach this in different ways, and probably my favorite aspect is the spell cards. 3 spell cards are laid out on the side of the board, and what happens is you can trigger the effect of those spells with a gemstone. It's another resource. There's a lot of resources resources in this game. And with those spell cards, you can do all sorts of really cool stuff, like build extra tunnels or well, basically break the rules in some way. But I like the fact that when you use the spell 3 times, it goes away and replaces with another one. So different spells come out at different times, which allows for different strategies and tactics to form. Of course, every other player is going to use those spells, so do you get a time to use it? Should I use it now, or is somebody going to use it and make it go away? There's a lot of cool stuff that this game has, and people badgered me for ages to get this game. They were like, Luke, you've got to get in Horde the Mountain King, it's totally up your street. You'll love it. Well, I do love it. So far, I'm really liking it. It even worked in 5-player at one point, although it was quite a long game. But one thing this game has going for it, besides really good aesthetics and components, even though I don't even have the Kickstarter version of this, we're working on that with the Fall of the Mountain King Kickstarter. But with this one, I found it interesting that for the amount of depth that this has, the rule set is actually not that complicated. You've only got 4 phases in a round, and chances are you will only do 2 of those phases in your turn for the most part, and the meat really happens in the second phase, where you build a tunnel or recruit a troll. I didn't find that I had to teach that much in terms of rules, but people were still thinking hard about what they could do. So one of those games with not low complexity, but certainly relatively low complexity to the high depth it has. That's a pretty good combination. So Horde of the Mountain King, Fall of the Mountain King. Burnt Island games are starting to win me over here. We'll have to be interested to see how far they can take this kind of thing. But yeah, in the Horde of the Mountain King, my dubious number 7, as I say, you tell me whether it's 2019 or 20 officially. Either way, I'm talking about this great game. It'd be hot today. It's like 26 degrees out there. That's bloody hot for Britain, okay? So I'm probably going to melt by the time this video is over. But this number 6 is my deduction game for the list. I believe it's the only one for this year. This is from Renegade Games and Foxtrot, where you are searching for the fabled Planet X. And I'm going to need a minute.
3 days later.
There we go. This is the problem when you put it on the bottom of the shelf, you gotta get everything else off it. But no, Search for Planet X is really cool. It uses an app. Yeah, okay, screw me. It uses an app, people. Technology is fine in games. But this one uses it in a really cool logic deduction manner. You can play against a bot with solo rules, or you can play against other players where you're racing to search for the Planet X. It's kind of the clues in the name. But the way it happens is that you are given a little bit of information about where certain anomalies are in space. Asteroids and comets and gas giants, etc. Each one has its own logic rule about where it can and cannot be on this circular board in terms of the different sectors, Sector 1, Sector 2, Sector 3. And what you do is that you circle around the board in a kind of almost Takedo style fashion. You can go wherever you like, but if you go too far, you won't get many turns because the person at the back is always the person whose next turn it is. So it's, you know, the less time you take to do your actions, the more turns you get. But with this, you then have to use the app in order to ask it questions like, I want to search this sector, or I want to search this particular range of sectors for an asteroid. And you find out the information, you note it down, and throughout the game, you just try and narrow it down by process of logic and elimination where Planet X actually is. It's not the best in terms of components, I'll admit. It's kind of basic, but it doesn't really need to have flashy components. I mean, come on. Decrypted have flashy components? You know, not everything needs to, but the deduction game in this is really sound, and I love the fact that the app is fluid and easy to use. The solo mode in particular is really good because you play against a bot, and the bot basically is sort of, you're kind of racing the bot to the finish line, but you get to enjoy that really cool deduction element without necessarily needing a group of players with you. Really solid, really didn't expect much from this, it just came out of nowhere. This is kind of like a hidden gem of 2020, but honestly, if deduction games are your thing and you enjoyed the likes of, say, Cryptid, as I mentioned, definitely give this one a look, and don't be afraid for the app. It's a very basic app on your mobile phone. It's perfectly fine, guys, alright? We can live with apps.
I'm throwing you away.
My number 5 is a condensed version, a travel version if you will, of one of my favourite party games that there is, which is Mysterium Park. This one takes that big grandiose game of Mysterium and condenses it down in a 2 to 6 player version that can be done in less than half an hour. You play through 2 rounds, 1 round to guess what the person is and 1 round to guess what the location is, and you use those Dixit style cards in that same manner, where one person who has to be silent is giving clues to the other investigators and is doing it through Dixit pictures who then have to kind of piece together what kind of pictures are associated with their clue. It's basically Cluedo. So you're trying to find out who committed a murder, and it's like, right, the person and the location. Which one of these people is for me? Well, they've given me a tortoise riding a rabbit whilst holding 3 red balloons. It's like, what on earth does this mean? It's like, you know, you get some weird imagery in this. But one thing I love about this is, 1, it condenses the length down. 30 minutes, that's really good length for this game. 2, dirt simple rules. There's like fewer rules in this than the other one. 2 phases, so the game is simpler and shorter to do. But what it does do is that it opens up a world where you can have all different themes of this. So look at that, Mysterium Park, where's Mysterium Camp, Mysterium School, Mysterium Town Hall, I don't know, you could have all sorts of weird ones. But this one even manages to be slightly more difficult, I think, than the big game version. With the circus performing like locations, you find that there's a lot of similarities between the different clue cards, and suddenly trying to distinguish one from another becomes a lot harder in this. I would dare say I've lost more games of this than I have the bigger Mysterium. Not to say that this has replaced Mysterium for me. I still have it on my shelf in the other room. I still love it. But this one is one that I'm keeping because if I don't have enough room in the bag, or I just want something a little bit shorter, then I take this one along instead. So really love it. Mysterium, such a good series of party games. I can't wait to see if they do more of these. I'll certainly be in for the next one. Mix it up with your Dixit cards if you want, because it will certainly increase the challenge for you. Not that this one needs any more challenge, because it's pretty hard as it is. But my number 5, Mysterium Park. My number 4 is a little bit of a heavy one. In fact, it's so big, I probably should have some of that Space Odyssey music on. Or sorry, it's like dur, 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 dur. It's like, yeah, Kanban EV. Yeah, technically the game came out like Lord knows when. I can't remember when it came out, like years ago, but that was the Stronghold Games version. This is the Eagle Griffin Games version, and trust me when I say this reprint is needed. Oh my word. It not only adds like a couple of extra rules and a couple of little mini expansions to the game to streamline but also add variety. You now have a fantastic solo mode, probably the best solo mode in any of the Lacerda games, you know, with David Turtsey like lending his hand to it. But the graphic design and the looks and aesthetics of this game has been jumped up to 11, and this is easily now my favourite of all the Lacerda games. I mean, the Gallerist and this Kanban were fighting it to the death when it was the Stronghold version. Now with this, it's this one without a shadow of a doubt. It's easier to teach it, making it easier to play, even though it's still a heavy game. Love the theme. Yes, it's EV, which basically means electric vehicle, whatever, that makes no difference in the game. You're still running a factory, you're an employee, you're trying to make cars, get the designs, test their parts, while dodging your annoying boss Sandra, who comes by and keeps marking you on your work and your technical studies. It's such a cool twist on a worker placement. What? It's technically worker placement, yeah. I mean, you've only got a few spots to go to, but they quickly get used up and you can't go to the same space twice in a row, so you have to really plan out when Sandra's going to get in your way and obviously dodge all the other players. Really, really solid game. I love this one. It ain't cheap. Trust me, it's not cheap. And I don't really care about the little mini expansions that you can get. But to have a version that's better than the Stronghold one in terms of its look and aesthetics, just to make the game that much easier to play and teach and get to the table, this is solid. Love this one. Kanban EV, one of my favorite heavy games that there is. Now I can remember where some of these games were on my previous list when we get to the top half. This was my number 2, now it's my number 3. And it is, oh for crying out loud!
3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
Why do I keep putting the games I need to get on the bottom of the shelf? What am I doing? But this is Viscounts of the West Kingdom. I am still torn as to whether this or Architects of the West Kingdom is my favourite of the West Kingdom trilogy. Paladins doesn't even stand a chance, but this one in Architects is the one that's in my collection, and I love both, but for different reasons. I mean, Architects is better with more players, and it's simple and streamlined and really smooth, and yet has that really cool worker placement feel of like resting other people's workers, which is great. But Viscounts, when you've got, you know, 2 or 3 of you together, 4 works as well if you know what you're doing. It has this really cool puzzle system with a little mini deck building element where you're utilizing the cards in such a way to keep them on a tableau in front of you, which functions a bit like a conveyor belt, but while they're on your tableau, they're triggering different abilities, and you've got 4 main different paths of victory to follow, like getting workers in the castle, getting manuscripts. I mean, it's dry as a bone. Yeah, the theme of this is super dry, but the puzzle and that little deck building nature and what you do with the cards have all got multi-uses. You know, you can hire a villager into your deck, or you can just dismiss it and get its ability, but there's bonuses here, bonuses there. It's what I want in a Euro point salad-ish type puzzle game, and it just works so well. Good replay value, lots of different characters and starting setups you can use. I can't wait for them to just expand this and give me more cards, give me more villagers, give me more like things to do. I would love to see that. But no, this game is a fantastic Euro game. As I say, both of these fight so hard to try and think of where they should sit. In fact, I played this last week with 3 of my friends actually, and you know, we had a blast. I think I went for Mother Teresa, and I went for a very high virtue style strategy, but then I was also getting all my workers in the castles, or I was just causing all sorts of chain effects. And this has also got one of the best solo modes in like any Euro game. The solo mode in this is done so well. Different ways to play it, different difficulty levels, but a very streamlined AI system that's easy to operate while you can still get that really nice flavor of doing that puzzle with your own cards. Really enjoy this one. It's dropped to my number 3, but that's not really saying much. It's just basically highlighting how unbelievably amazing the top 3 games of my top 10 of 2020 is. Like I say, when I did the list last time, I was having to put rating 7 games at the bottom of my list. I was like, oh, where are all these games? Trust me, I needed those extra 6-7 months in order to play more 2020 releases, because for this to get beaten by 2 games now, whew, I had to have played some pretty good belters. And here's one of them now. Yeah, when you saw this video review that I did earlier this year, I was giddy as a schoolgirl when I was talking about this game. It's hands down probably one of my favourite, if not my favourite. Well, I don't know, we'll have to see what happens at the top 100, but this is definitely one of my top worker placement games of all time now. The fact that not only is it a streamlined game with tons of replay value, it also differs every single game because the way that the board is built up is different every game depending on the players. That's just mind-boggling. Yep, of course. Whistle Mountain. I never got to play this in 2020. I got to play it earlier this year, and I instantly fell in love with this. Every time I have played this since, I still enjoy it. Can it drag its heels a little bit with 4 players? Yes, that is a flaw with the game, so I tend to play this more 3-player. Loot Laureate has actually released a solo mode for this. I've yet to play it. It's a print and play. I've got to go and get it, but you can bet I'm going to go get it at some point, because if I can get this played solo, that will just be like the icing on the cake. But this is just fantastic. It's a straight up worker placement engine building game at the end of the day. But the idea is that as well as the spaces around the edge of the board, you are acquiring scaffolding and machines in order to build up this big construction in the middle of the board, which is communal. Every player is contributing to it. But as you build the scaffolding, they've got resources on them, and you can have your airship workers go in between the scaffolding to go on different spaces, if you will, to collect the resources. But then you build machines on top of those scaffoldings, and then those machines trigger different effects. They get you resources, they let you convert something to this, or they just have insane game-breaking rules like some of the larger machines do. And with those, you can land on those machines or next to those machines to trigger their abilities. So the board state will look fundamentally different every single game, and it could like go as high as anything in the first few turns if people do that, or the tower might not expand very high. It will be like short and fat in a sense, but you'll have a lot of machines to trigger. The tactical opportunities that arise from this game is just so fun. Every round that comes by, I'm like, oh, that machine's now there. If, well, that machine's there, I've got this ship, I could sail in there, and that gets me this, this, and this. Your brain just starts rushing so much from what you can do in this. I love it. It's streamlined. Yes, there's a lot of rules to read in terms of the different effects that all the machines do, but it's in a handy reference guide at the back of the rulebook. It's easy to understand. I never had a machine or part that required an FAQ to understand how it worked. It's just so good. And yeah, check out my review of this if you want to see me talk about it in more detail. But seriously, this is not getting enough buzz from some people, I know. It really deserves it. This is fantastic. Get it. And yet there's a game I like more than that one? What possible game could I like more than Whistle Mountain, the way I talk about it? Well, trust me, this was hard to rank. My 1 and my 2 could literally be like, oh, neck and neck. They are so aligned, it's unreal. How I'm going to decide between them in my top 100, I have no idea. Spoiler alert, of course they're going to be in my top 100, give me a break. But this one was my number 1 last time. It's my number 1 this time. Sorry, Dune Imperium, this game is better. Lost Ruins of Arnak. New designers, like their first game. And it's a smash hit. Everybody is going mad for this game, and I'm one of them. It's just a very smooth, really cool, kind of hybrid game of worker placement and deck building, but the different paths that you can take, whether I'm going to go exploring, maybe I'll go explore, maybe I'll go kill guardians, maybe I'll go research, maybe I'm just going to build up a really cool deck full of interesting tools, or utilize the artifacts to their best ability. But this is about as thematic as you're going to get for a Euro Indiana Jones / Tomb Raider style game. I mean, the references come out everywhere in this. We're always quoting the movies. But I love how it looks. It is beautiful, like so beautiful and well produced. It's just very smooth. There's no weird to understand rules in it. There's a lot of tactical opportunities because you're doing action after action. You're trying to think, well, if I do this, that gets me the resources so I can do that action. And when I buy this card, that will come up next round. But right now, if I get that artifact, that effect will trigger off now. So that will allow me to research, and it just feels good. Everything feels satisfying. Now, you can rope yourself into a corner if you're not careful, so in your first few games, you might struggle to get a good score. But stick with it, guys. Honestly, this game is so much fun. I always enjoy playing it, whether it's on Board Game Arena or in person. The solo mode is really solid. There's a campaign you can play for it now, and yeah, I've not actually played the campaign in this, but I have played it solo, and I really enjoy that. It's just a really solid game, and it only takes about 2 hours to play tops. No game's gone longer than, well, bear in mind, one 4-player game went longer than 2 hours, but we were playing with a slow player in that one.
Do something! Do something! Do something!
Who likes to min-max, so yeah, that kind of happens. But nah, this one, really solid. I mean, it's neck and neck with Whistle Mountain. I love both. You could interchange them if you really want, but nah, I really love this game. Lost Ruins of Arnak, one of the best Euros I've got in my collection. Check game editions, you really did well this year. This and Under Falling Skies, this was probably your year, 2020. Whew, and yeah, that is my 10 favourite games from 2020 as a retrospective look. So there were some that stuck around. I mean, Under Falling Skies, Mysterium Park, The Lost Ruins of Arnak, and a few others, you know, they still stuck around. But they have shifted position. But I now feel confident about this top 10, because previously I was like, well, I suppose I can throw this one on, I suppose I can throw this one on. But no, this time I felt like, right, no. This is 10 solid games. I mean, what was my number 10? Dwellings of Eldervale? And that's essentially a really strong 8 out of 10, creeping to a 9, but mainly a strong 8. Whereas previously I had to put 7s on. But when we got to my top 5, Kanban, Mysterium Park, Arnak, Whistle Mountain, all of them are 10 out of 10s for me. I forget what my 6 was. What was my 6? I think it was, oh yeah, in the Hall of the Mountain King and Search for Planet X and stuff like that. Those are 9s. Those are, you know, 8s and 9s. No, they're 9s for me, actually. So yeah, half my list is made up of 10 out of 10 games. 2020 improved a great deal once I was able to play a few more of the games. There are better years, certainly, and 2021 has been kind of, well, dead so far, which is no surprise, but maybe by the end of the year a lot of good 2021 games will get released, and then I'll eat my words at that point. But nah, oh yeah, these games are like, there may not have been that many great games from 2020, but some of the games that were great are really great. So yeah, I was able to get in a good mood for this one, but what did the people think? Okay, look, the people's choice, and yeah, it's gonna differ quite a lot from my top 10 actually. Not to say that they've put bad games on here, well, maybe one, we'll see. But no, they've come up with a very different list to me, so you're gonna get some pretty good perspectives here. Alright, Whistle Mountain was 11.
You cut me deep, Shrek. You cut me real deep just now.
Whistle Mountain, guys, come on! Whistle Mountain! But, oh well, like I say, only by one vote as well. There was literally 13, 14, 15, and 16 and 16 on the votes thing here, so these bottom few are so close it's unreal. But number 10 is a draw between Viscounts of the West Kingdom and Honeybuzz. I like Honeybuzz. Honeybuzz was a good game, light, with economic feel, but with a nice cutesy theme and some fantastic components. It just wasn't really a keeper for me. I gave it a 7, I still give it props, and I look forward to the next one in Elf Creek's line, but yeah, I wouldn't have put it on the top 10. And that drew with Viscounts of the West Kingdom, which surprises me, because I would have thought Viscounts of the West Kingdom would have been a lot higher. Number 9, by only another vote, so 16 and 16, this is 17 votes, Praga Caput Regne. Praga Caput Regne is good. It's a decent Euro game. It's effectively a point salad dry Euro game, and I do like the way that action wheel works. This is fun. I had it, I gave it a good review. Well, I didn't give it a full review. I played it and gave you my first impressions, but I still like the game. I'd give it a 7 overall. I'll happily play it. In fact, I did play it a few weeks ago, actually, because somebody wanted me to teach them the game. It's a solid Euro, just not one that I think stands out from the crowd. It's more a case of this is a perfectly good Euro, and that's about it. It's not one that was going to be a keeper for me, but it's popular with a lot of people, so fair enough. Next up, Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion. Disqualified! It's the same game as Gloomhaven, it's just a smaller version, although maybe I should be careful about that because technically you could argue that with Mysterium Park. Quite possibly. Well, as I say, I may not be the biggest Gloomhaven fan, but clearly 19 of you were because that got the votes there. So what was that? That was joint 10, so 9. 8 was Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. 7 was Calico, which I'm surprised about. 7, Calico. Calico's fine, but it's a very small push-a-luck game. There's not a lot of strategy to it. You can only do so much because, especially in a 4-player game, it's ridiculously chaotic. But, yeah, I mean, it's cute, and I love the kitty cats. That cute little kitty cat on the front cover is really nice, but I'm surprised that got really high as well. Oh, well, carrying on. 6 is On Mars. Yes, I know I culled that in a recent video, so in May I think I culled it. It's too complex for its own good. Paul Grogan does a fantastic job trying to make the rules like as easy to learn as possible. And trust me, I think the game's impossible to learn if he wasn't involved with it. But there's just too much complexity in that game. I enjoy it. I think mechanically it's sound, but I got 4 other Lacerda games. One that I was just talking about, Kanban, and it's a lot easier to teach all 4 of those games. And that's including Lisboa, which is a mammoth to teach in itself. On Mars is just too much complexity. I don't care about the Alien solo expansion. I've got no intention of getting this back into the collection. I enjoy it, and I'll play it, but you're going to have to teach me the rules because I certainly ain't learning them again. Number 5, Dwellings of Eldervale, so a lot of people like that. 4, Beyond the Sun. Look, I will try Beyond the Sun at some point. Everybody is talking great about this game. I do think it looks like trash.
It does look like she was beaten with an ugly stick.
Not mechanically, just aesthetically. Let's face it, is anybody looking at Beyond the Sun and thinking it's a looker? No! But it's on Board Game Arena, but Board Game Arena sucks for learning games. It's not where I go to learn a game. So I really need to get a copy of this, but it's sold out in the UK. Maybe somebody at the UK Games Expo coming up will have it. That would be nice. I do want to play it, and I might like it. I mean, it may look bad, but it tech tree the game. I like tech trees. Rio Grande does some cool stuff. I'm up for trying it, but a lot of you say it's really, really good, so I'll trust your word on that for now. Number 3, The Isle of Cats. Look, The Isle of Cats is a really good game. It's on my shelf. It would probably be my 11 or 12. It just kind of squeaked off the list in favour of the other 10. And like I say, last time I struggled to make 10. Well, this time I had a short list of great games that didn't make the top 10. Isle of Cats is great. It's a cool polyomino style game where you draft the different cards in order to rescue cats and put them on your board. Love cats, love the aesthetics. It's really cool. It just didn't make my list, but no surprise that by a fair leap from 4th to 3rd, that was definitely in the People's Choice slot. Number 2, The Lost Ruins of Arnak, annoyingly beaten by only 5 votes, but still beaten by Dune Imperium. Yes, alright, okay, I'm being harsh there. I do like Dune Imperium. Yes, I just culled it on a recent video, but I gave all my reasons for that, you know, the balance issues I have with it and the aesthetics and that, but I did give it a positive review. It is still a great game. Although I'd probably say it's more of a good game rather than a great game now. But for the issues that I had, you can watch my cull video on that. I just didn't want to keep it anymore, especially when a friend of mine has the game and will get the expansion and I'll play his copy. But, you know, a lot of people love it to bits. Lots of people overlook the poor aesthetics of the game. although I'm surprised you're overlooking some of the balance aspects. I mean, seriously, half the cards in that deck are trash. But, oh well, like I say, I digress. You can check out that video for the full reasons. I still give it props. It's a solid game and I still enjoy playing it. I just didn't want to keep it because of the issues I was starting to have. But the people love it a lot more than I do, and yes, they made it beat Lost Ruins of Arnak, although I don't know why you compare the two. They're okay, both of them have got slight deck building elements, but that's it. They're really not similar in any other way, but I don't know. I digress. But as I say, you love Dune Imperium the most. I love Lost Ruins of Arnak the most. So, like I say, we can agree to disagree. So yeah, that's my top 10 list of 2020 retrospective. If you like what you see, please leave a thumbs up on the channel and on this video because it means the world to me to know that you enjoyed the content. Don't forget that this channel is also sponsored by Zatu.co.uk. Check out the code in the description for 5% discount off your entire basket of games. Perhaps some of these great titles you can find in the UK. Take your fancy. Save some money while buying yourself something else. Fill up those holes on your shelf. And if you want to check out more content on the channel, well, I talked about why I culled Dune Imperium on my recent June Culls video, but then you can also check out the last top 10 I did, top 10 endgame triggers, where I talk about a rather unique subject area. So until next time, remember as always, agree to disagree, it's only a game. Bye for now, everyone.